Hello and welcome to another episode of the Help Is Here podcast brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Welcome back, Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, doing okay. I'm feeling a little bit tired, been a long day of work, but overall feeling good and excited to get into today's episode. So, what we're going to talk about is actually what is the goal here? Like, why are you listening to this podcast? What is the thing that we're all striving towards? Because in the past, I was doing NoFap. I did the streaks. I quit porn for a while, had some temporary confidence and some of those benefits. But what I learned is that that is not the path that I really was wanting to go down. Like there wasn't really any destination on that path, and I want to set a clear destination. So that's what we're going to do in today's episode. So Mary, do you want to kind of start off by sharing your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I think that people can stop an addiction. They can stop a porn addiction, whatever. There's stopping, and then there's the difference between stopping and getting free of it. It's where you've stopped in the past. You do a no fap streak, or any other addiction. People will stop and then they'll pick up some other addiction or some other compulsive behavior. Yeah, you've stopped. Okay. So you're not doing that addiction or whatever, but it's just a matter of time. And there's like living in that trying to control it, or then worrying about having another addiction and worrying about going back to the addiction, to the porn addiction. That's not freedom. I feel like the goal, and maybe people don't realize it's even a possibility, but that the goal is mental freedom. I know we sound like broken record, but true mental freedom from that desire, so that you don't always have to be trying not to think about it or outrunning it or whatever, that you can, when you do have that permanent mental freedom and you have that peace of mind, you have the ability to focus on what you want in your life, and the mental energy to put toward those long-term goals, whatever they are. And it's really good to be able to document what those are, but and then to stay in the moment to deal with the addiction with the tools that we provide. But yeah, people can stop, you know but staying stopped and feeling good about it and actually getting permanently mentally free of it, two different things.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, two
Yeah.
things come to mind for me there. I think the first thing is that you definitely can be in the addiction whilst not engaging. And that was actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today, is because, one of our clients has just said he's not looked at porn in years. And that kind of sparked that sort of idea again, that you can be in the addiction, in that constant conflict of you wanting to engage and you want to stop engaging. And you can even be in that constant conflict of you want to engage and you're also choosing not to engage, but at the same time, you don't really feel free because it feels
Yeah.
like there's this sort of willpower or this tension or this battle going on within you. And it's just it's not a nice feeling, essentially.
Yeah. And why did he come here? Hasn't done porn, hasn't done porn for 3 years, whatever. But yet he's seeking out, what's he seeking out? You haven't done porn, but so you're not, but he's still not okay, right? He doesn't have that permanent mental freedom. The other thing it makes me think of is dry drunks. They call people that are just not drinking dry drunks, right? They're not drinking, but they're still, oh God. So sorry, go ahead. Your second thought, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I don't know if this was the same thought or not. It may have gone, but I think the
Maybe.
thing is like getting to a position where you are in control of yourself across all behaviors is the real goal, because you can quit porn, but as we've said so many times before, you could just substitute that with other compulsive behaviors. And also, it is that clarity, that space of mind, that capacity to focus on the lives of people around you, maybe focus on other bigger things like your goals in life, as you said, achieving success in one way or another. And when you're in the addiction, it doesn't really matter so much whether you are engaging or not. If you engage, I mean, obviously the consequences are going to be way, way worse, but you can definitely still have a ton of those consequences without engaging. And it's only now
Right.
that I feel I've gone beyond compulsion that I'm actually having way more time to focus on really like building a business here with you, obviously, but also other things like spending time with my partner or making new friends or playing football like 3 or 4 times a week nowadays, which I absolutely love. So got all this time now. And I think that's probably one of the main benefits because in the past I would be thinking on some level about quitting porn so often because
Yeah.
I'd have that desire. And I did get quite good at dealing with that desire. Not perfect, but I got better at dealing with it. But the desire was still there. And I think when you have a very specific tool that allows you to think through the choice, then it's just a case of willingly accepting temporary discomfort because you've made your choice and you don't need to think about what do I do now. And I think that's probably
Yeah.
where I'd like to take people is to a place where they have literally every single answer possible when it comes to addiction recovery. Because I feel like that's where I'm at now. And that's
Yeah.
where I wasn't in the past. I may have had some success, but I didn't have every single answer. I didn't have like a bulletproof method to deal with this problem. But that is possible when you understand the addictive part
Yeah.
of the mind in a lot of detail.
I feel like too, we use these words willingly accept the temporary discomfort when people, they don't really understand. I mean, you can understand those words, right? And a lot of people out there are like, okay, that discomfort of thinking about it. Oh, just meditate, run around the block, pick up a hobby, get creative, go on a Zen retreat, whatever it is, manage your stress, all of that, but that what we provide is a very concise way to willingly accept the temporary discomfort. That's not something that people, oh, that's the answer. I can just willingly accept temporary discomfort. We provide a very, concise step-by-step process to be able to do that, right? So I just don't want people to think that that's the only thing, because there's so much that leads up to being able to do that we
Mm,
do provide, because if you think about it, if you're running away from it, trying to do something else, there's really no willing acceptance happening there at all. And like you were saying before, it's like you got pretty good at, alleviating some of the consequences, but when you're trying to control it and never getting permanently mentally free, the consequences just change. It's a different kind of negative consequence happening for you. You're not getting necessarily the negative consequence of engaging all the time, but there's a lot of negative consequences that come with trying to control an addiction, trying
yeah.
not to think about it or whatever. Yeah.
I
So,
think a really, really important point to make when it comes to dealing with that discomfort is that there's ways of dealing with discomfort in sustainable ways, and there's ways of dealing with discomfort in unsustainable ways. So I'll give an
yeah.
example of that. In the past, I used to feel like the only way for me to deal with that discomfort was to do an hour's meditation every single day. And I think I was making some podcasts around that time when I was on a long no fap streak and meditating every day for an hour. And to be fair to her, I disagreed with most of the stuff she said. But one of these addiction experts out there called Jess, she did say to me at one point, okay, well, you can meditate for an hour, but what about the thoughts that keep on coming back, like day after day? And that's exactly right, because although I was dealing with the temporary discomfort and I was able to detach from those feelings, and I got really good at that and just sitting with the discomfort, well, what's going to happen if you still have the same thought patterns day after day? It's like I could have continued on that path of meditating for 1 hour, feeling that discomfort every day the next 50 years. And maybe I would have been able to quit porn the next 50 years. But it's like I have to sit with a ton of discomfort for a
Yeah.
full hour every day. And when you
I can
realize
just
that,
see Tom from now till eternity. Oh, he's in the corner meditating.
there
Sorry,
you
I just
go.
got this image of that, forever and
Yeah.
ever. And but the thing is too, is with the beauty of this program is like that discomfort, it's not something you have to deal with indefinitely because it literally goes away. And like you're saying, you don't change those thought patterns. You can be meditating and then you're doing whatever and you're feeling pretty good or whatever. But then here comes the junky thinking, right? If you don't change the neural pathways of the junky thinking, that's going to come back and start the negotiation process and start bullshitting you and all that if you don't know how to deal with that. all the meditation in the world is not gonna help you get truly free of the desire, which
Yeah.
is, the issue. The desire is the issue,
So
So,
going back to that end goal of where you want to be at, I would say you want to be at a position where you can deal with any desire because you'll be thinking it through and you'll know exactly what to do. You won't have any doubt at all. And when it comes to doubt, you also want to be able to deal with any doubt at all because they there's going to be junky thoughts along the way of
yeah,
recovery, of changing your pathways. There's going to be a ton of doubt. We even see it with our clients who have their scripts. They're even sometimes doubting the script at times, and that's part of the
yeah,
addiction. And we have a specific tool to deal with that. So you want to get to a position where you can literally deal with any junky thought that comes up. Now, on the topic of junky thoughts, we're going to talk about these all the time on this podcast. I'm going to probably go in the studio this week and record some of my own junky thoughts, and these are very natural. There's nothing to be afraid of. And in the program we talk about the man behind the curtain. But do you want to talk a little bit about junky thoughts in general, Mary, and how these get in the way of people actually really embracing this permanent mental freedom that is possible?
yeah. Well, interestingly enough, we just updated our school community, and there's so many junky thoughts that people can go and listen to very specifically. But if you just really just break it down, a junky thought is any justification or rationalization that you use to make it okay to engage in the behavior. And they can sound really good. We work with a lot of really smart people. And so therefore their junky thinking, the addictive part of their mind, is just as smart as they are. So it tries to find all these different ways in the back door to get them into feelings of deprivation. Or, I mean, in my book, I've got have it right. At least I do. I have the categories of the junky thinking, which are, let's see here. Let me grab it real quick. It's yeah, categories are, so sorry about that little delay.
Well, Mary, just while you're
Yes,
looking for those,
yeah,
I've got
sure.
some categories as well, like in school. So I could read out these
Yeah,
categories and then you can read out yours.
yeah,
I know the ones that
sure.
you've come up with are slightly different. I am aware of those ones because they are in, I think, phase 2 of the program. But what
Yeah,
I've got is all or nothing thinking, conflated thinking, denying the
yeah,
reality of addiction, deprivation thinking, disempowered thinking, emotional
yeah,
reasoning, fixed thinking, future thinking, glamorized thinking, minimizing consequences, script avoidance, self-deprecation, and substitution. So there's quite a lot there, but I'm sure we
yeah.
could, rename these in different ways, and they're all going to be pretty similar, really. And I'm looking forward to talking about those different categories on the podcast more in the future as well, because I think we
Yeah.
could probably do, we could talk a lot about these different junky thoughts. But yeah, did you want to share any, or is that okay
Well,
to?
I feel like what you named are pretty, there are a lot, that covers a lot of the categories, but I want to like let people know as well that no matter what the category it is, I don't want people to think that it's infinite, that junkie thinking is infinite, because it's not. And once you learn to identify it, no matter what category it falls into, the response is the same, because having a junkie thought, trying to convince yourself, that's wanting to engage with your compulsive behavior. You're wanting to do it, so just you'll be able to think it through with the script that we provide. It'll handle any junky thought, and just simply knowing and being aware that junky thoughts are going to happen. It's like, and knowing that whatever it is it's trying to convince you to engage, there's bullshit in there. If you can't identify the junky thought, it's bullshit, and people can contact us, and like you say, we're going to be doing some more podcasting where we're going to do some specific junky thinking, but it's just a matter of education. And number one, learning all the different kinds of junky thinking and how to correct it, but most importantly is knowing that junky thinking is bullshit. It's trying to convince you to engage, and just being able to know that it exists rather than doing all these other things to try not to think about your addiction, thinking about it on purpose. Oh, here's another junky thought. Here's another opportunity for me to change these pathways so we have a pathway to permanent mental freedom from the addiction. that
I
make
think a
sense?
really beneficial thing about junkie thoughts and framing them in this way is like it can definitely alleviate a lot of the shame that can come up for guys who are struggling with porn, because that's obviously something I used to experience a lot of. And no matter how much research I did into the likes of Brené Brown and the science behind shame,
Yes.
I still would feel a ton of shame after every
Yeah.
relapse, feeling like, geez, like, is there something wrong with my intrinsic desires? Like, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I stop this problem? I've been trying for so many
Yeah.
years, right?
Can
And
I
when you
add to that?
realize,
Can I add to that?
go on,
Um, did you say self-deprecation is one of the categories that you took from
yeah,
school? Because as far as junkie thinking being really tricky, self-deprecation is one of those that is very tricky because it's not like, oh, I want to go use porn. It's, oh, I'm just a failure. I'm a loser. I'm this, I'm that. It's a very tricky form of junkie thinking because what it does, and it gets you, so you're circling the drain and feeling horrible about yourself. And then when that's happening, then comes the thought, oh, I should just go use porn, because what's the point anyway? I'm just a big loser. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no problem. What was I gonna say?
I'm so sorry. I just was like, I wanted to identify that self-deprecation junkie thinking because it's one of the most shrewd, kind of tricky ones, other than the spin, which we can get into later. But that's one that is just like, it's just not obvious because you're just beating yourself up, but it doesn't come as, oh man, I'm having this desire to go use porn. It just comes as like, oh God, what's the point of all this? I'm just a big loser anyway. And it's really shrewd. It's really tricky. But once you know, and you know now, it's like feeling all this shame about yourself and what you've done in the past. That's a junkie thought. And so
Yeah.
now you don't have to fall prey to it. That's the cool part, right?
I think, to be fair, that was the main point I was just going to make, is that when you
Yeah.
realize that actually the reason you're engaging is not because there's something wrong with you, but instead it's because you have a junkie thought, and that junkie thought will include there's something wrong with me, then you can actually distinguish your identity from addictive neural pathways, because addictive neural pathways create junkie thoughts. So you have a certain set of thought patterns which are going to try and get you to engage in a compulsive behavior, because the addictive part of the mind only wants you to engage in compulsive behavior. It doesn't really care about anything else. And so if it can try and get you to feel terrible about yourself and feel like there's something wrong with you and feel all this shame, it's like it's got a way better chance of actually using that against you, putting you into a state of helplessness and making you engage. And when I really came to understand all of this junkie thinking stuff, it helped me understand that actually there was nothing wrong with me all along, and that is just another
Yeah.
ploy by the addictive part of the mind.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yeah, it's self-deprecation is really misunderstood, and it can a lot of times therapeutically be diagnosed as some kind of a disorder. Now we can add a label to it. This person who's just got all this self-deprecation, now they've got whatever the disorder is, this
Mm.
mental unwellness, mental illness, whatever you want to call it. So now it's like, this is just who I am, rather than, oh, wait, I have addicted neural pathways that are trying to get me to feel like shit about myself so that I can use it as a reason to engage,
Yeah,
you know?
it's
So
really
yeah,
interesting, because I mean,
yeah,
there's so many people out there who are struggling with things like confidence, and I don't think they're even remotely aware of how big an influence addiction is having on their confidence, and how that lack of confidence is often being caused by addiction, and then the addiction is using that lack of confidence to create more addiction, and you're just going round in a circle. When you're out of the addiction, you're not going to be worrying about
yeah,
your confidence so much, because you're going to
yeah,
be in control of yourself every single moment. And I think as any human being, being in control of yourself moment by moment is something that is going to naturally give you confidence, but it's less about this kind of external confidence and more just a groundedness in that that you
yes,
can choose in ways that you respect, and you can respect yourself, because you're now no longer choosing to do things that don't align with your values. You're no longer choosing to do stuff which makes you feel frustrated and angry and annoyed. Instead, you're
yeah.
always moment by moment feeling in control of yourself. And that is going to give you a groundedness, which I think is really valuable for anybody.
You're using this word groundedness, and as I'm hearing you say this, it's such a great description of what this program can provide people. You know, so many people, number one thing they want to gain is peace of mind. And with that peace of mind is also, that's like the mind, right? Then there's, it kind of bring it down to the groundedness. It's such a great way to describe how you can feel when you are totally in control of your choices, no matter what they are, whether it's, whatever the addiction is, whatever the compulsion is. It's to be able to feel like you are in control of your choices. I think that we should share that with the guys and be like, hey, add groundedness to your benefit list, because it's really a great description of one of the things that you can gain. That, I mean, it may seem a little esoteric, but it's really, I think it's really pertinent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's somewhat important as well to when you are thinking about like the benefits of overcoming an addiction and you are comparing that to life in an addiction. I think it's definitely important to focus on things that are within your locus of control as well, and emotions as well, because people will often see certain goals that are external, and maybe it's I want to make a load of money, or I want to get a girlfriend, or I want to strengthen my relationship with this person, but all of those things depend on external factors. And all you can really do when you're going through an addiction recovery is focus on what you can control. And I think that's another junkie thought that can come up is, oh, I'm not experiencing the benefits right now. My wife's still pissed off at me and I'm not even using porn. So why don't I go and engage? That's just a
Right. Yeah.
very, very classic example of what a junkie thought would look like. And there's
Yeah.
literally hundreds, if not thousands, of junkie thoughts out there. But as Mary says, once you actually process and actually deal with urges enough times, you read through your script, you change neural pathways, you're going to notice junky thoughts very, very infrequently, because
Yeah.
at that point the brain's starting to change and it's actually
Yeah.
engaging with the compulsive behavior, which creates more desire. And if you're choosing to try and stop doing something, then that desire is going to usually take a path through some junky thinking, like on its way towards you actually doing that
Yeah.
thing that you don't want to be doing.
And I think too, with the concept of groundedness, is that groundedness can bleed into all interactions that you have in your life. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you feel grounded and you feel in control of your actions, right? That can bleed into relationships, how you deal with people, how you deal with your boss, how you deal with the construction guy working outside. It's like just everything, how you deal with people in general. It's just going to bleed in a very positive way to, everything in your
Well,
life, I feel like. Yeah.
yeah, it's funny you should say that actually, because literally just before this podcast, I'd been to the gym and got a workout in, and then I was walking home and I thought, oh, I'll go past the square. So Cutting Room Square in Manchester. It's like quite a big sort of social square, and there's a lot of restaurants and wine bars and stuff. It's quite nice. And that's
Yeah.
where all the runners were. And I didn't go to running club tonight because I just didn't really fancy running. I wanted to go to the gym instead and just spend some time alone, to be truly honest with you.
Yeah.
So I went to the gym, had a nice workout, and then I was walking back through this square. And usually I will go to, actually, I say usually, I barely ever go to running club, but I'll occasionally go to running club, and my partner was there as well. So I was like, okay, I'll walk through this square. And I walked through the square, and there's a group of guys, about 7 guys. I knew about half of them. So I walk over and I'm just standing with them because I see my partner, my girlfriend, she was just like talking with some girl. So I'm like, I'll just leave her to that. Join these guys, just having a chat. I know half of them, as I say, and it was fine. I was just kind of standing
Yeah.
there. They'd all done a run. And I know for a fact in the past, when I was in a porn addiction, I would have felt so much like anxiety and questioning myself, like, what am I doing in this circle? Like, I've not been on a run. Everyone else has been on a run. Like, should I be here? Is this okay? Do I go over to this girl? But oh my God, all this bullshit. And like most
Yeah.
of that would have been due to the lack of confidence that I was experiencing due to the addiction. And then what probably would have happened is I would have gone home, would have continued in this state of anxiety, going around with all these unanswerable questions, which are completely pointless,
Yeah.
completely meaningless. Like no one else cares at all. It's only me in my
Yeah.
head that I'd have that problem. And one way or another, those thoughts would lead me eventually to porn due to that self-deprecation, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what
Right.
would have happened like 2 years ago in the same situation. Tonight
Yeah.
instead, just stood in a circle, had a chat with some guys, had a bit of a laugh, and
Yeah.
then eventually, my girlfriend came over and just walked her back to her house and then went home, and it was sort of just a nice little catch up with people, you know.
Yeah.
It's like just not deep at all. It's not a big thing,
You
but
know,
it would have
I
been in
think
the
about
past.
like some of the guys, a few of the guys recently in our chats have said, oh, how they just notice that they go and they're in social settings and feeling comfortable, where before they would just be like high anxiety in the social settings. So yeah, it's a really cool benefit to just be like feeling okay. You can just, engage in a social setting and feel okay about yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's lovely.
And
It's lovely.
I hadn't even thought about that until now. But that is another thing I definitely recommend to anyone who is choosing to quit porn right now is if you are doing well, try and notice the benefits as often as possible,
Yes.
because that's really, really useful to just kind of reinforce that, okay, yeah, I am on the right path here and I'm willingly accepting that temporary discomfort for a reason. Now, as Mary says, it may be quite difficult to actually utilize that methodology, that idea of willingly accepting temporary discomfort
Yeah.
without a full education on addiction. But if you are managing quite well right now, then yeah, just really sort of continually sort of just reinforce those ideas like, yeah, this is really good, like this is worth it, and
Yeah.
I'm doing this for a reason, and I'm loving life right now, and this is good. I think that will help a lot of people as well.
Me too. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. It's been
Yeah.
good to chat with you again, Mary. Hopefully we'll have some
Me
more
too.
podcasts
Yeah.
coming soon as we continue to spread the methodology behind the Beyond Compulsion method and try and help people. And yeah,
Spread the
thanks for
hope.
listening. If you want to learn more about this method, then go to the website. So new website, www.beyondcompulsionacademy.com. There's some free training there, and hopefully I'll add some more stuff there in the future as well. So yeah, hopefully that can be useful to you. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next podcast. Bye bye.
Take care.